Welcome to Selene's Gateway, Horoscopes from the Moon. And I am just doing the open office hours today, just trying to be present and available for questions in the chat room about astrology and things of that nature. I've also got my tarot decks out so I can pull tarot cards for people as well. And I'm going to be working on a chart and kind of utilizing the temperament of the soul, delineating the soul techniques on a chart. And yeah, I'm just here. I'm just here hanging out, really. And as always, I'm going to start with the invocation of gratitude. And today is October 11th of 2025. It is the day of Saturn and the hour of Mars. We've got Mars rising in the east. We're going to switch this view to the nighttime view. But yeah, we have Mars right here, rising in the east on the horizon right now. In tropical Scorpio, and just at the feet of Virgo. And with that, we'll say the invocation of gratitude. So take a moment and get comfortable. As always, this has been an adopted writing inspired by the words we say before all else, that is from the Haudenosaunee, and was introduced through the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer in the gratitude titled Allegiance to Gratitude. So we invoke the spirit of gratitude, and we start with the land beneath our feet. We give gratitude to the land for supporting us all our lives, for being the foundation that upholds us and the places that we gather under. For being the soil that nurtures all of life, we recognize her as Mother Earth, as Gaia. Mother to all, birther and nurturer of all, it is through her gifts that we are blessed with these bodies that contain our spirit. Also, that all of life is grateful to her. She gives life to all without a demand of price or return. May we give as she gives. With the land, we recognize those that were here before us and were displaced by colonizing authorities. We recognize the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, and Cathlamet, and others who thrived for time immemorial. We would like to see a just world where these lands are returned to their traditional relatives. We give gratitude to the water that nurtures us and gives us strength. We have deep gratitude for its clean properties, and we believe it is our responsibility to help ensure that clean water remains available for all, including our plant and animal relatives of the present and the future. We give gratitude to all the plants. They provide us and many more with food and shelter. We thank them for their willingness to offer healing when we are sick, and we are grateful that we still have people who know how to commune and make medicine with our plant relatives. We give gratitude to all the animals. We are humbled when they give up their lives to be food and clothing for us. We hope to see a restoration of the relationships with both the plant and animal communities, that we can return to a balance and harmony. We give gratitude to the air for providing us with breath and lift. We are grateful to the spirit of breath and wind for carrying our words, prayers, and laughter on its back. We give gratitude to the sun for providing us with light and warmth. We have gratitude that the balance of power shared between Gaia and Helios can be felt through the seasons, a reminder that all things need rest as well as growth. We may also give and share our light with such wisdom. We give gratitude to the stars for guiding us. We believe that as we shed and return our bodies to Gaia, our souls return to the heavens, that the heavens contain our ancestors, and that through their light provide us with wisdom, comfort, and guidance. They taught some of us the rhythm of the seasons and how to navigate across both the seas and skies. And we give gratitude to the 5 wandering stars, the wild sheep of Babylon and the grahas of India. We thank them for holding, warning, and teaching us through their spheres of finality, mercy, conflict, love, and ingenuity. And we give gratitude to Selene. She maintains the waxing and waning of the great ocean, as well as the generation and corruption of our lives. She softens the harsh rays and has taught many of us the rhythms of the plant and animal communities. She is the teacher of astrology and midwife to all who are born. May we bring comfort and guidance as she does. And so it is. And so it is. And I'm really grateful for the Stellarium program. It's really nice just to be able to see the constellations like that. I have it set on the Islamic Arabic setting, so that's why the drawings look as stylized as they are. And we can see the sun shining through the constellation of Virgo there in the tropical zodiac of Libra. And so here we are. And then we've got a visitor. We've got Sarah Eliza joining me in the chat. And and I'll definitely pull a card for you. I actually need to do one for myself. I haven't done a card for myself yet today, so I'm going to do one for myself really quick, and then I'll pull one for you as well. And then I'm going to be applying the temperament of the soul technique to a chart, and pulling cards for other people if they join us. And let's do this. It's been a dreary day here in Portland so far. We've begun our overcast season. It'll be mostly cloudy days here on out here in Portland, Oregon, although we'll be happy to see some sun here and there and maybe some 70-degree days before November, but just in general, we've started our wintertime look. The Saturn-Venus opposition coming in strong. Feeling that sense of soft stillness, delicate hardness, like crisp marble. All right, here we go. And so I'm pulling for myself from the Light Seers Tarot. Let me know if you prefer the Light Seers Tarot or the Mystic Madness deck of Journey to Oz and Wonderland. I've been using the Light Seers Tarot as my morning tarot card because it just reminded me to do this practice of like always turning the card upright when you pull, and they talk about how it's kind of like a practice of like inviting light, and I've been kind of seeing it as this way of like inviting light into my morning, and my chart's pretty heavy. I've got the Saturn Venus opposition in my chart. I've got that baked into my life, and I've got Mars opposite Venus, and Saturn and Mars conjunct the moon, and the Sun opposite Saturn and Mars, and so there's just a lot of tension and heaviness in my chart. So having a practice that just like forces me to be positive every morning is really helpful. It's just a really great way. People talk about doing shadow work, and I spend enough. I'm not saying that I've mastered all of my shadows by saying this, but I spend enough time in the darkness. I spend enough time in the shadow to like do a light practice. I need to do a light practice to balance myself out. Eliza's saying that it's still warm in Texas, and that she'd prefer it if she had my weather right now. So yeah, my light practice card for the day is the World. And I like all the characters that the Light Seer Tarot deck has in it. One of my favorite cards in this deck is actually the Two of Cups, because, the Two of Cups generally gives us insight into like new relationships starting and things of that nature. And I'll try to pull it out, but the Two of Cups, let's see if I can find it really quick. But yeah, the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Cups shows a couple like holding hands, and they seem to be like getting betrothed. And it's a classic card of like starting love, and it's the Decan rulership is of Venus and the Moon, Venus by Chaldean and the Moon by Triplicity, But the thing that they do that's really cool about this deck is, like, first of all, there's like multiple tones of humans. Like, it's very multiracial, and I love that about it. It feels very non-discriminatory. But this Two of Cups card, I'm gonna take the time to find it because I've spent so much time setting it up, even if it's the last card. Here we go. Wasn't the last card. So yeah, isn't that beautiful? There's no implication of marriage, but there is an implication of bonding, and you can't tell what gender the hands are coming from, and there's two different colors of skin tones being shown. It's just, to me, this is just like one of the best versions of the Two of Cups that I've found so far. And that's one of the things that I really value about this deck. Yeah, and Eliza mentions that the Two of Cups can also be aligning with your own self and values. Is another good way of looking at the Two of Cups. And yeah, and then the World Cup, I believe, or the World card, I believe Eliza is pointing to in the chat with that Saturn symbol, points us towards Saturn in the traditional Golden Dawn correlations. So I'm going to go ahead and just read the keywords and the mantra out of the book. You know, I have my own personal opinion about what the World card means and things of that nature. But it's always good to, I like and I think a lot of tarot practitioners can like agree with this. One of the reasons why it's fun to get a bunch of new decks is because you get to hear just other people's perspectives on the card, and it kind of helps open us up to ways of thinking about the cards that to help expand our ability to see and understand them. And so the World card for the Light Seer, which is what we're reading, instead of upright and reverse, it shows them as Light Seer and Shadow Seer. So for the Light Seer, it represents completion, joy, wholeness, achievement, happy endings, abundance, success, new levels of consciousness, literally traveling the world. And so here's where the perspective of the tarot card becomes personalized, because it is Saturn Day, and I did draw the card that mostly represents Saturn, and I would not say those things about, not all of those things about Saturn, especially joy. But maybe this is maybe what's happening here too is that this is a version or a representation of this Venus-Saturn opposition. Is that, you know, Venus is attempting to lighten up Saturn through this card. And the mantra from this deck, so each card gets its own little like mantra or saying, as well as a description and obviously the keywords. And so the mantra says, I accept this gift of completion, and I ascend to new levels of awareness and wholeness. I am love. And yeah, that's really nice. And Eliza adds, when you recognize and meet your physical limitations, then you are liberated from suffering and can find joy. Yeah, that's a great point. And like, what are the true limitations? You know, in my personal belief and practice, like the limits of self is the acceptance of everything is a part of you, because we are all a part of a greater whole. And there is a joy and satisfaction that comes from that understanding. To be liberated from the current moment of suffering by the understanding that everything is interconnected and woven together. And then what I end up being met with from people about that subject is that you know, people are like, oh yeah, everything is one, you know, love and light, blah blah blah, but what about all the suffering in the world? And it's like, yeah, that's part of it too. The suffering is part of it. But when we're liberated from the moment of isolation and individuality and personal experience, uh, all of that kind of sheds away, and it doesn't belittle people's suffering. It doesn't belittle the suffering going on in the world. It just there's just a point of realization that I feel should come with the understanding that part of our job is to alleviate suffering when we can, where and when we can. And the first place that we have to do that is alleviate ourselves from our own suffering, because it's hard to see how you can help if all you can feel is your own pain. And so, yeah, so that's kind of a lesson from Venus opposite Saturn today. Uh, Eliza, did you have a preference on which deck you wanted me to pull for you? Material reality is temporary, but our light is eternal, and our darkness. It's all together. Do do do. And yeah, so I'm just waiting for Eliza's reply. Whichever. All right. Well, I've got the Light Seer Tarot deck out, so we'll go ahead and go with that, and then move on to working on the temperament of the soul technique. Blue would be with us, but he decided he wanted to go outside instead, and I told him I was going on live, but he was really excited to go outside and see what was going on, so that's where Blue is currently. Maybe I'll go check in a little bit to see if he wants in, because he likes to join me on these, and he likes to say hi during class. And by class, in case you're watching later, what I'm talking about is that Eliza and I are enrolled in the Fundamentals of Astrology program from Austin Coppock, and we're both in the year 3 part of the program, and that's later this afternoon. And Blue has attended every single class, and so I hope Austin doesn't find out and ask me for money, because because he's just as much of an astrology wizard as me at this point. So this card is for Eliza, and it is now moved into the hour of the sun for us, Eliza. Here in Portland, Oregon. It's probably the hour of Venus where you are, or maybe Mercury. I'm actually feeling a little warm. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just pulling it straight upright every time for this card for you. So no reversals today, at least for this moment. And we've got the Four of Wands. It's a very celebratory card. I love it. And initially, the Four of Wands is here to remind us to celebrate our successes and achievements, and to give honor to the moments that we've had on our journeys. It's about embracing our own fiery passion and will, and the achievements that we've completed along the way. And it's the third decan of Aries, which Eliza's pointed out that is where her IC and Jupiter are. And the third decan of Aries is rulership. In astrology, is the Chaldean order of Venus, and the triplicity order, it's Jupiter. So Eliza's Jupiter has some dignity by being in that face, and some strength by being that close to her IC. And so let's see what the book says for you, Eliza. It says keywords are celebration, prosperity, an important event or milestone, gathering of souls, kindreds, stability in home and relationships, sometimes signifies marriage. You getting married anytime soon, Eliza? And then the mantra for the card is, I am devoted to my connectedness, and I celebrate the wonder of loving bliss with my community. I'm going to say that again just in case you want to write it down. I am devoted to my connectedness, and I celebrate the wonder of loving bliss with my community. So I'll put the cards down for a second. And then this is the chart I'm working on today. And so, yeah, we're going to be assessing the temperament of this chart. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a temperament kind of checklist thing to see where the elements land. And so you can follow along. I put the chart on the screen so that you can follow along with what I'm doing. I don't have this set up to be able to use a pointer or anything, so hopefully you can see it well enough. And also, if you have questions about what points I'm talking about, put them in the chat. Eliza's a trained astrologer, so she'll be able to follow me pretty closely in what I'm doing. And yeah. Whose chart is this? That's a good question. I purposefully didn't put the chart up yet because I want to explore it and then reveal who it is what I'm doing here. So it's kind of like a mystery chart, but it's also not because I know who it is. So the mystery is more for you than it is for me. And so for the first steps, and so what I've actually done here is I've gathered two different temperaments of the soul style. One of them comes from the delineation or the translations and delineations of Abu Mashar and other Islamic astrologers via Ali Alomi. And then another version is one that was comprised from Dorian Greenbaum's book uh, about temperaments of the soul, where which I highly recommend. It's a really great book. And I wonder, do I have it behind me here? Oh, you know what? No, I don't. I don't have it here. I believe I lent it to a friend. I need to check to see if they're still working on it. Um, yeah, that's right. I have a friend who's actually uh, uh, getting their getting their like masters in psychology or something like that, and they're also an astrologer, and so I lent them that book. But yeah, Dorian Greenbaum's book is cool because uh, what she does in that book is she goes through all of history, all the as far back as possible to like the first philosophical Greek writings of the elements and where temperament originated from. And if you're not clear on what I'm talking about, if you're watching this later, by temperament, what I'm talking about is fire, earth, water, and air, and the way that those elements mix to create uh, the different humors of the body. It eventually became used primarily through medicine, and is where we still kind of get a lot of our foundational principles of medicine in general, even though they don't really subscribe to them entirely in the medical field. But you'll find natural medicine healers who still who recognize Galen as actually a good starting point or understanding of medicinal philosophy. And so you have choleric, phlegmatic, uh, choleric, phlegmatic, sanguine, and the other one is skipping. The fourth one is skipping my brain right now. Sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic. Oh yeah, and melancholic. And obviously, melancholy, like we still have a strong pull towards the word melancholy. I think was it a Smashing Pumpkins album titled "Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness." Um, but anyway, like so that's where that all kind of originated, was really far back. And so in Dorian Greenbaum's book, she starts as the furthest point in history that we have archaeological evidence of the Greek philosophy of the elements, and then brings us forward all the way through the different writings, including the different astrological opinions on it through Ptolemy, through Valens, because this technique of temperament of the soul uh, is something that is passed on and on and on through all of the astrological traditions, and then falls off in the Christian era, the Christian astrology era, because it became illegal to do soul techniques during the European Christian era, and so then that part of astrology, although was still used for medical purposes, medical astrology was used very like all the way into the 1800s or something like that. Like they were still using medical astrology for for people like George Washington and stuff like that. And and I believe medical astrology went further in other, and still continues today in India, and was also practiced in the Islamic lands for a much longer period of time. All of that is to say that uh, that I'm using Abu Mashar's temperament of the soul technique, and then Dorian Greenbaum's temperament of the soul technique. Which part of what her book does is she did a study on uh, on kids, which sounds diabolical at first, but she was a part of a school. Uh, what is that school called again? Dornbecker, something like that. She was part of a school. She got permission from like 32 families or something like that to do this like study of using the different temperament of the soul techniques. And then the teachers were actually through this school. The teachers are actually taught to use a psychological temperament in a way of like analyzing the kids, so they already had their own framework of developing and understanding of their kids, and like using that as a way of like organizing the class, and understanding that some kids are going to be more emotional while other kids are going to be more active, and being able to give the children the room and breath to express themselves in the way that is natural to them, instead of the type of school that I grew up in public school. I don't know if this was everybody's experience, but like everybody was like kind of forced to be one way, and that's kind of just Western capitalism in general. We're just all supposed to fit these like perfect boxes. Uh, but instead, Dornbecker, I believe it is Dornbecker, uh, taught the teachers in how to read the temperament of their children as a way of helping the children express themselves more proper or more naturally to their own selves. And so the teachers would like make notes. Oh, this kid is choleric. This kid is, using these same words. This kid's more prone to melancholy, so forth and so on. And then basically what the teacher did is or what Greenbaum got uh, was all the kids' charts, used all of the different temperament of the soul techniques from William Lilly to Abu Mashar to Ptolemy, and then interviewed the teachers to see like how the teachers felt the kids were, and she was able to create a pretty interesting accuracy. But what I've noticed, and the reason why I use both, because I do really like her system, but the reason why I use both is because the astrological side of Abu Mashar kind of shows a little bit better about the internal operations of a person, whereas Dorian's does a good job of showing how people present themselves. And that's what I think that's interesting about the two processes. And so we'll take a look here. And so the first thing that I'm noticing right out the gate when I'm looking at this chart is Black Moon Lilith is on the ascendant. And I think that that's probably something that I need to notice because I've been studying Black Moon Lilith over the last year. And I think that this says a lot about how this person showed up in the world. And I think you'll agree when we get there. And so first we check to see what the moon sign placement is, and we're going to check to see if it's hot, dry, wet, or cold. The moon is in Cancer. And so we give a point towards wet and cold. And that's really nice that the moon's in Cancer. That's a really awesome um, it's just a really awesome placement. It looks like it's in the 8th house. I'm realizing now that I accidentally have this house system set up, not in whole sign. So I apologize for that. But I'll be looking at the chart through whole sign and talking about the chart through whole sign. And then we look at the moon's phase. The moon's phase is waning, and it's past the waning quarter, just barely past the waning quarter, and the waning quarter gives us, I believe that's cold and dry. Yeah, fourth quarter of the moon is cold and dry. So we're gonna give this person another cold point. And I have a spreadsheet that I do this on to help add up the things and keep them organized and stuff like that. The moon ruler is the moon, and so we're gonna give another cold and wet. And then aspects to the moon. And so we're good. I just use whole sign aspects for this because I kind of I see it more as like a whole sign technique and not so much as a degree aspect technique, because I feel like these are more like planetary influences over the moon and not like direct influence. Or I just think that this is more of like an ancient Hellenistic technique that's been brought up through the ages, so I don't think the degrees matter as much. And that's how it's shown up in the other charts that I've done this with as well. So by whole sign, we have, starting at the moon, we don't have an aspect from Jupiter. We have a sextile from Venus. And Venus is in the morning star phase. So another technique that I've been adding with this is that I've been giving Venus temperament based on if she's evening rising or morning rising. And so we're going to give her a hot and wet temperament by being a morning rising, and then I give her a cold and wet if she's an evening star. And then let's see, so Venus, and then Mercury is making a square. Mercury takes on whatever temperament of the sign he's in this technique. So this gives him a hot and wet temperament by being in Libra. Then we have an aspect from the sun, which is hot and dry. And then we get an aspect from Mars, which is also hot and dry. Getting a lot of heat from this person so far. And then don't think there's an aspect from Saturn. I believe Saturn's in Gemini. Yeah, so no aspect from Saturn or Jupiter. Although it's interesting to see that really tight sextile between Saturn and Jupiter. This makes me wonder if this person was born right after a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus. Probably. But that's not about temperament. That's about the prominence of the person. And yeah, so that gives us 4 hot, 2 wet, and 2 dry. Mercury placement, we've already said, is hot and wet. That's the next thing you start to look at, because the composition of the soul is mainly the moon, Mercury, and the ascendant. Those are the ways that the astrologers That's one of the ways that the astrologers saw the soul, through the descending of the soul through the spheres. Um, they applied Jupiter to more things like wisdom and understanding and things that you learn over time, and Saturn was more material. And so they gave the soul kind of to this three part of Venus, Mercury, and the moon. But Venus is less about, uh, in this complex or this understanding. Venus is less about the way we operate our soul and more about how we intuitively move with our soul. And so I've been kind of looking at Venus's bound placement for understanding the way somebody's like intuition or felt experience comes through. And that's actually an ongoing experiment that's not conclusive yet. But if you get a temperament of the soul reading from me, like you'll be part of that data set. And then so next we look at the ascendant. What's the ascendant placement? It's in Sagittarius. This person, then Sagittarius is a fire sign, so we do hot and dry. And the ascendant ruler is Jupiter, and Jupiter is hot and wet. A lot of heat. And then aspects to the ascendant. And once again, we're going to just do whole sign aspects to the ascendant. And the whole sign aspects are, let's see, moving through the zodiac. We look for, let's see, Saturn is in opposition to the ascendant, and so that's cold and dry. And then the moon can't see the ascendant. Jupiter is making a trine, so that's hot and wet. And Venus is making a square to the ascendant, so that's another hot and wet because Venus is morning rising. And then Mercury is hot and wet and is making a sextile to the ascendant. And then the sun is hot and dry and is making a sextile to the ascendant. And so that's 4 more heat. And then dry is 2. And wet is 3. And cold is 1. This gives us a final score because you can't see it. I'll read it out to you. Gives a final score of 11 points for heat, 6 points for dry, 9 points for wet, and 4 points for cold. So what would we say about that? Well, by combining the elements, we get an understanding that this person has a fiery temperament, but they are balanced by their wetness, and so this creates a sanguine temperament. And so this also reflects the fact that the ruler of the ascendant is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Leo. So you see this double coating of this layer of like this person has a fiery, vibrant personality, but it comes through this Jupiterian like joyousness and the composition of sanguine is an accepting one. It's sanguine is associated with the spring. It's about bringing people together and connectivity, and it's very it's a temperament that's ready to bring the world to life. When you think about the springtime, you think about the excitement of like the flowers blooming and everything is like buzzing and the baby lambs are out and all the baby animals are everywhere. And if you've ever been to Yellowstone during the spring, it's like the cutest season you could ever do that. and because you just get to see a baby version of every animal in the park. And so that's what I think about when I think about sanguine. And it's really cool to see that the double signification in the chart too, because it really brings that out. And this is one of the reasons why I like using this technique, is because Jupiter and Leo, Jupiter and Leo can be very, especially in the third decan, you can kind of get this more like authoritative, like judicial dryness. But that's not what's being felt here with everything else that's influencing the soul points. And so that's but there is still this like dryness in the accumulation of all of the attributes of the soul, because the dryness total was 6, so there is some clarity. It's not a it's The person did not come from a place of like unrealistic optimism, which is what you can end up with if you have too much sanguine. Is you can get this unrealistic optimism that drives you towards that like the type of personality that is like, I don't want to hear about anything negative ever. That I just want to stay in this place of joy and love and abundance and bouncy, floaty, fluffy kittens and stuff like that. Don't tell me about poverty. Don't tell me about suffering. I can't handle being around people that are depressed. Like you're not getting that from this chart. This chart has enough dryness and coldness in it to balance the sanguine out enough. And then you see that reflected in the chart as well, because you have this heaviness of angular Saturn in the 7th house. And so it's really cool that they reflect like that. And then now we're going to do Dorian Greenbaum's. So what we just did was Abu Mashar's temperament, and so now we're going to do Dorian Greenbaum's temperament chart, which uses a few of the same things but also some different things. So for Dorian, we're going to be looking at the birth season, the ascendant sign, the ascendant ruler, the triplicity almutin, and the moon sign, the moon phase, and the sign of the moon ruler. And oh yeah, and so the triplicity almutin is the is the triplicity lord of the ascendant. I had to remind myself of that really quick. So birth season, born during the fall. So we get a phlegmatic. So, and then in Dorian's system, instead of doing the hot and dry, cold and wet, she uses the combinations instead, and then gives like a total of what the combinations turn up in the chart. And let's see. So okay. So birth season was phlegmatic. The ascendant sign is sanguine. The ascendant ruler is also sanguine. The ascendant triplicity almutin is, see, it's a day chart. The triplicity lord of the fire signs in a day chart, I believe, is the sun. Yeah. So that's hot and dry. And then the moon sign is phlegmatic. And the moon phase is melancholic. And the sign of the moon ruler, well, it's the moon. So then we get another phlegmatic. And so this is where, when these differ, it's really interesting. So when these differ, it's really interesting. So now this person is presenting themselves more phlegmatic. And so what do I mean by that? So by phlegmatic, first of all, we might say that this person doesn't share their character directly and is maybe more fiery in private. Another way we could see this is that they were born just after a lunar eclipse, and the North Node is engaging with their sun and increasing it, but the eclipse is always harming the luminaries. The eclipse points are always harming the luminaries. So we could see this as a shadow that's been placed over the sun. The sun is also in fall, so there may be insecurity about presenting themselves. So that's part of the issue that we see in this chart. Also, the moon. The moon is in the 8th house, which is detached from the ascendant. So there may be a hard time connecting with their emotional sphere, but I would definitely more think of this as probably like more like being behind the scenes. That sun situation may be showing up more as like being behind the scenes. And so what the phlegmatic temperament describes is a difficulty in motivating, strong feeling nature, compassionate, connective, supportive, maybe a philanthropist, generous, reserved, shy, contemplative, deep thinker, impractical, and may fall into addictions. Motivated through desires, emotions, difficult to find direction, personable, prefers routines, familiar destinations, cafes, etc. Maybe be a creature of habit, caring, thoughtful of others, ignores problems, easy to drop plans. And so I think that some of this shows through what we know about, from what we know about this person. And I definitely agree with the philanthropist. Well, you'll understand what I mean when I reveal like who it is. But you definitely see the difference in these two techniques. I really feel like the Abu Mashar list gives us an understanding of the internal world, while the approach from Dorian Greenbaum like helps us understand how this person liked to present themselves. And then, so we're going to continue on, and we're going to continue to investigate the different parts of the soul in this chart. And next, we're just going to investigate Mercury and the Moon further through this process that Dr. Olier Lomi has put forward. And I'm using his work as a guide to help me understand and share this. In case you're just joining, I'm just doing an example of delineating the soul through this chart. I haven't revealed who it is I'll reveal who it is after I'm done working on it. Um, but if you're here, let me know, and also I'll pull a card for you if you want a tarot card pulled. But yeah, so we're gonna investigate Mercury and the Moon and see what they say through the translations. And so we're going to see that this chart. Let's see. I need to set up my thing a little different here. Sorry for the pause. I'm trying to get my windows organized behind the scenes as I'm looking at this. So first we're going to look to see what sign Mercury and the Moon fall in. And we see that Mercury falls in a cardinal sign. So we would say that Mercury in a cardinal sign makes people fond of people and fellowship. Cities and community. And you see that like doubled up here by Mercury being located in Libra. And Mercury is really close to the MC too, so they may be known for this quality about being fond of people, fellowship, cities, and community. And we see this signification doubled up because the moon is also in a cardinal sign. So we would also say that this person is maybe known for their sociability and activity. And because Venus rules Mercury, the translation says if the governor is Venus and the condition is powerful, then it makes the individual happy, amiable, serene, joyful, introspective, zealous, fond of art, artistic, devout. Their thoughts turn to matters of religion, worship in God. They will be likable, beautiful in figure, wealthy and skilled. Ecclesiastical. So Eliza asks in the chat if they're ecclesiastical. And so are you referencing like religious? I do believe this person was religious, or studied in religion. That's not what their title was, but I do believe that I believe that they had a strong Christian faith of some kind. But I also definitely think that these qualities really shine through. And then you also have this lovely mutual reception happening between Venus and Mercury. Venus is, I think, another beautiful thing that's coming through in this chart is the astrology of the moment. We have Venus in fall in Virgo, and then we have this chart of this famous person, who they are famous, with a Venus in fall in Virgo. And, I think it's always important to look at things like fall, but this Venus is also strong, and it's the ruler of the sun. And so Venus may be uncomfortable by being in fall in Virgo, but Venus also has triplicity dignity, and she has a lot of strength in this chart that the person can operate through, and is the governor of the person's sect light. So I really think that this fallen Venus really shines, especially since it's so far away from the sun. This is a morning Venus that literally brings up the sun. I don't know if you've had the chance to witness Venus in the morning. Uh, she's currently still a morning star, so if you get up early enough, you'll be able to see her rise before the sun. And it is so brilliant. The first time I saw Venus, in the first time purposefully saw Venus rise in the morning, I was flabbergasted. Well, not flabbergasted, I was awestruck. And it really clicked one of the things of why astrology exists, why astrology exists, and just like, oh, this star is this planet that we call a planet because we can understand through modern technology that it's a different type of body than the other lights. But from the ancients' perspective, without telescopes and stuff, it just looks like a star. And it is so brilliant and shimmering and shining and so beautiful. And so yeah, so on the morning of this person's birth, which it looks like they were born just right around noontime, maybe sometime between 11 and noon. And but when they on the morning of their birth, while their mother was still in labor, this beautiful shimmering Venus was rising in the horizon, and I just really love that. And then they have the lot of fortune in Virgo as well, and Mercury is being governed by Venus in Virgo, and there's a mutual reception there. So I think that these qualities really shine through. I'm going to read them again. This makes the individual happy, amiable, serene, joyful, introspective, zealous, fond of art, artistic, devout in their thoughts, turned to matters of religion, worship, and God. They'll be likable, beautiful in figure, wealthy, and skilled. Skilled in sex. I don't know about that for sure. But maybe. Uh, it's in the translation. And then we're going to move down to... So it doesn't have a translation if the moon governs itself. It doesn't have a translation for the moon or sun governing Venus or Mercury. Let's see. It says here, okay, so this is about the lights in the ninth house. And that description, oh, sorry, to clarify, that translation is for if Venus rules over Mercury and Mercury is found to be strong. And we're going to say that Mercury is strong in this chart be, because it's in an air triplicity, it likes being in air signs, and because it's really close to the MC. And so I'm just going to read this translation of... Yeah, it just basically says that if the lights are strong or in good position, then it'll increase the positive merits of the soul. And yeah, that's interesting, Eliza. Um, and so next, let's see. Now we're going to go on to a different translation, still looking at the triplicities of Mercury and the moon, or the modalities. And we're once again still looking at the cardinal. So it says if it's in a tropical or cardinal sign, it signifies inclination to high mindedness, the ability to learn and understand quickly, is honored as a love of the sacred sciences, appreciation of beauty, and devoutness. If it appears, yeah. So, and then once again, both the moon and Venus, both the moon and Mercury are in cardinal signs. So this applies. This is doubled up on this signification. And then we look at the position of the planetary lord. And so we want to look to see if it's found in the east, in the angles, or in the succeedent angles. And so yes, this Mercury. So this is a westerly Mercury because it's on the western side or the setting side of the MC, but it's on the eastern side of the 10th house. And so we may say it's not in a cadent house though, so it's succeedent. So this person may have had a quick mind, but I don't think that they were bold and rash. Are some of the delineations that come from this. So I'll just read what it says here. If each of the markers of the soul planets were found in the east, in the angles or succeedent to the angles, then it will signify a good mind, sound virtue, and constancy in action, and will act without delay. If you find them in the west and falling away, then they may signify bold but unwise action, a quick mind, and rashness, and one who associates with base people. So the moon is definitely westerly in this chart. So some of these bold but unwise action, rashness, and one who associates with base people, that may have been true. But I don't know as far as like the base people thing. Isn't it considered cadent since it's falling away from the ascendant? Oh, so Mercury, you mean falling away from the MC? I think it is considered cadent because it's falling away from the MC. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, if you're using a different house system, uh, this may show up as a ninth house Mercury. Um, I can't remember which house system I set this chart in on accident because I usually just always have my chart set in whole sign, but for some reason this one is set in something else. And yeah, so if I turn this to Placidus, it does put that Mercury in the cadent house of the ninth. But I think I have the chart that you're looking at set in Regimentanus for some reason. uh, anyway, that's the beauty of doing these lives and getting this stuff set up. And then and so the governor of the soul, I think I missed a part in this translation. So I think we're going to take this as governing either the moon or Mercury. And so the moon governing itself, it says, if the moon is the governor and in good condition, it will signify beauty in virtue and figure, honesty, increase in virtue and wonderment. If the moon were in a bad condition, it would then signify a mind inclined to bad thoughts and a bad figure, melancholy, and their words will bring them harm. And I don't. The moon is the moon is really strong. It's not in our favorite house, but it is in a succeedent house, and it definitely brings in a sense of caring about eighth house topics. And then for Mercury, we're going to turn to the translation for Venus. If Venus is the governor and in good condition, will signify charm, joyfulness, beauty of manners and demeanor, and luxury. If Venus were in a bad condition, it would then signify immodesty, a nature without shame when committing vileness, promiscuity, and excess. And so we're not going to say that this Venus is fallen, so that's a negative condition. And it's receiving a square from Saturn, so that's a harsh ray. It's getting a sextile from Mars, but it's in the 10th house, and it's got a lot of strength to kind of do its own thing. So, and it's governing the sect light. So, yeah, so we're going to say that most of the positive significations are probably coming true, though I haven't read this person's biography. So maybe there's some tea in the biography that speaks to this immodesty or a nature without shame when committing vileness, promiscuity, and excess. But we'll have to check that out later. And that kind of ends this process. So what we've come across is we believe that this person expressed themselves as a very good-natured character and who had a very strong intellect, and we kind of see this reflected both in the position of Mercury and we also see this reflected as like other signifiers as this like Jupiter in the 9th house in Leo. And this Jupiter in the 9th house in Leo is definitely like giving the vibes of like somebody who cares about ethics, law, spiritual matters, education, and things of that matter. And we've found through this technique that they may be a person who loves people and fellowship, cities and community. We've found them to be inclined towards beauty and art and things of that nature. And then Eliza wants to know if they were a writer or on spiritual topics, and I don't believe so. That's not what they're known for. And then we have this Black Moon Lilith. This Black Moon Lilith on the ascendant. And this is what I love about learning about Black Moon Lilith, and it's not a traditional point, but Black Moon Lilith usually points us towards a part in the chart that has to do with wanting to right a wrong, or wanting to a part in the life that we may feel like exiled from or sensitive towards, and usually is some sort of like power signature, like a disruption of power and a wanting to right an imbalance of power. And you kind of see this signification showing up again as with the sun conjunct Rahu in Libra, this soul's guide towards balance and justice and fairness. And then we also see Pluto in the 7th house, and Pluto usually shows us a point in which there's an abuse of power, disruption of power, or also like a heaviness to cultural understanding, and and I really feel like this all really comes through in the chart. And this is the chart of Eleanor Roosevelt, who is well known for her work that she did as first lady in helping the common people. And I really think that the temperament of the soul technique really did a good job of fleshing out our understanding of her personality and the way that she used her power, her status, as a way of making life better for other people. And I think that that's really cool. I think that's really cool that that technique shows us that, because we can, you know, we can use all these techniques to like look at. We can use several different techniques to like try to understand a chart, but I really feel like this technique helps us get into the understanding of a person. Uh, if she so Eliza's bringing up in the chat that she thinks she was gay, and don't we know that she had a lesbian lover or something like this, and I don't know that. And like, so I should I suggest people check out her biography, learn about Eleanor Roosevelt, and like I said, there might be some tea in there, and you know that the things that came out about sex and promiscuity, and and things of that nature, you know, that may show up in there. Yeah, and apparently Lorena Hickok was the name of Eleanor Roosevelt's lover, and so yeah, so we have even these like hidden things, things that the public didn't necessarily know about Eleanor Roosevelt, that can be seen in the astrology. Uh, I think it's a really interesting technique, and I really think that this technique is helpful in many ways. I really think that this technique is helpful for relationship astrology. If somebody is coming to an astrologer and they want to know um, about somebody that they want to get serious with, I think that using this technique on fresh relationships would be helpful, because sometimes people uh, hide their darkest pieces from us until later, and especially if a person already has a habit of attracting certain types of people, like especially ones that cause them harm, it it would be a helpful technique to um, try to try to find that pattern and help them break away from that habit. Um, it's also just a fun technique to use on celebrity charts, like I did today. Oh yeah, and Eliza's saying in the chat here, they wrote letters to each other. Maybe those love letters were the spiritual writings I picked up on. Yeah, you know, there's a looking at the chart through the lens, you know, um, we would definitely say that their communication through the written word would be strong for this chart. But and also the Mercury is not under the beams, so being able to act in confidence, though very close to the eclipse point, like yeah, I think that that shows through. Mars in the 12th in Scorpio being strong and ruling. also ruling the fifth is interesting, as far as, and having the south node in the fifth as well kind of feels like hidden relationships, hidden sexual desires, uh, especially since we got some delineations of the soul that the soul was inclined towards promiscuity. So we see this signification of this very like alive fifth house that's being concealed by the south node. So that's interesting. Also, the prenatal lunation was a lunar eclipse. Uh, so there's a connection there between the lunar eclipse in Aries and the moon. And it's also interesting, too. It looks like, that lunar eclipse. Let's see, how many days away is that? That looks like that's 7 days away. So, yeah, that eclipse was really close to the full moon that we had. That's actually really funny. I didn't choose this chart for that. But this is a mirroring of the full moon that we just experienced. Kind of. The degrees aren't exact, but also the nodes the last couple of years were in Libra and Aries instead of Virgo and Pisces. I love when we just get like drawn to charts that reflect astrology. We also have Mars currently in Scorpio, so that's an interesting reflection of the chart of now to this chart. And we also have Uranus on Pluto in the now. So the current Uranus is transiting Eleanor's Pluto in Gemini. And Eliza's bringing up in the chat that uh, Franklin and Eleanor were also fifth cousins. Yeah, so that's a little. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely. You can definitely feel the tension of the outer planets as far as the like World War II charts go. You kind of see that this chart is like building up to that World War II chart, those World War II charts. Um, and then yeah, oh, it is interesting that like that Eleanor was pretty old when World War II happened because uh Uranus would have been not too old. Probably in her 60s is when World War II took place, because we've got Uranus in Virgo, and 42 years after that, we would have had Uranus in Pisces, and 14 years after that, we would have ended up with, uh, well, probably less than that, actually. More like 8 years would have been Uranus in Gemini. So yeah, she was probably in her early 50s when World War II happened. I don't have the chart data up in front of me either, so just doing some astrology math. But that's all I had planned for today. Eliza, thanks for coming. Thank you to anybody else who enjoys this video. I hope you find this technique interesting. Once again, this isn't fully just from the translations of Dr. Aolomi. I'm utilizing this technique from multiple different sources, and but I would definitely highly recommend Dorian Greenbaum's book on temperaments in astrology. It was really grounding. It was a really great way to ground the concept of the elements and the temperaments in a chart. And I found it to be because like when you're studying ancient astrology and you're trying to read ancient texts, like I think that it's equally important to have an understanding of the philosophical framework that they were operating from as well. And that's really what the temperament book helped with, is it really helped me root my understanding of the elements what they were experiencing and saying, the framework that they were thinking about when they're coming through and writing about these elemental shifts. And I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate those who watch this. And with that, I will say, may the fire inside guide you. Thank you for coming.